Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest foray into the Listener Questions Mailbag. On this episode, we're talking about MLS playoff structures. We're asking why so many players and coaches in Spain get convicted of tax evasion. We're discovering what a proper football man is, and much, much more. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, your friend, my friend, Chief Question Answerer, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, my friend. I loved these questions. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to finally get to grips with what is a proper football man, and my research tells me it's Joe, basically. Joe Lowry is our resident proper football man.
Yeah, well, there is a little more equilibrium between us. I should know that, Taylor. You
that's a crap opinion. Am I doing it? Did I do it right?
No, you're right. You're right.
Okay, cool.
You're right.
The woke opinion. Woke opinion.
No, exactly.
For me, that's a woke opinion. I think that's really how for me. I was gonna start with for me.
I will say, Taylor, you often start the show saying you're excited to have the conversation we're about to do so. You are often of a sunny disposition. Is there ever a time where you're like, oh, let's just get through this?
With the show, genuinely no. I will say this morning was a rough one, man. You know when your kids are like, you know what, we're going to tag team this to see just how much we can make you lose your marbles before 7:30 in the morning. Today was one of those days, culminating in my wife being like, hey, you've been dealing with them for a while. Take a quick break. I got this. And then my daughter immediately dropped her gigantic metal water bottle straight onto my wife's foot. So I was like 3 steps away before I heard a giant thud and a loud scream. So that's been my morning. So by comparison of dealing with 2 rowdy toddlers who are of strong emotional opinions, talking with you guys about soccer is a breeze.
Well, we have 3 rowdy toddlers, to be fair.
Yeah, I can scream if you want me to.
Yeah. Graham, really, I think when you and I could not stop laughing about Beefy Keefy during the World Cup and Taylor was about at his wit's end, I think that was us preparing him for having 2 children. So Taylor, really, you're welcome is the big takeaway.
I mean, it was in the sense that like you all were making jokes and I was like, but I have serious opinions about soccer to discuss. Like, yeah, that was good preparation for like, maybe you don't need to do the serious discussing. Maybe just let the toddlers play.
And also about halfway through that episode, I just face planted on the floor. So that felt very toddler coded as well.
That is... You didn't kick your feet up and down enough, but yes, otherwise, some similarities there too.
I've steered this one off the rails. Let's get it back on. Graham Rutherford introducing you. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Ryan Bailey. Still wearing that hat from yesterday, I see.
Yeah, 24-hour job. This one can be worn on multiple days, Graham. It's one of the bonus features
Special
of this Facebook cap I'm wearing. Yeah.
Have you I'm trying to pull the reference. What's the film or the TV show where they glue it to the person's head and then the hair comes off? Someone glued it to your head. That's what your kids have been up to. Could be worse, Taylor. Ryan's got a hat glued to his head.
Does anyone know what Graham's talking about?
No idea. Sounds like a minute.
Hattie Gluey? Is that the...
Rough, yeah.
Oh,
you haven't seen that old Scottish sitcom? No?
Scottish TV, that's right. Yeah.
The other reference I was thinking of is your hat kind of reminds me of the aliens from Toy Story, Ryan. The same kind of colour scheme.
It is. It's the same colours. Yeah. Seahawks colours. If you're on our YouTube channel, by the way, you can look at my hat, Graham's face, other things, including Joe Lowry. Hello, Joe.
Hey, yeah, that's a good sell. Good, strong sell for the YouTube. Come hang out, look at us, look at Ryan's hat. I'm wearing a hat. Graham and Taylor aren't. Boom. Painted a visual picture you can't resist checking out. Solved it.
Graham vogued for the 75th straight day before immediately going off camera. Now he has a hat on.
Graham's favourite Formula 1 team is now being endorsed on the Total
Taylor,
Soccer
where's
show.
your hat?
Okay.
Shameful.
Everyone's getting hats on now.
Really?
While we're doing hat things... Yeah, everyone's officially got a hat on. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. If you want more hat chat, bonus episodes, including bonus listener questions on the feed, access to our Discord server as well. All the cool kids are hanging out there, possibly while wearing hats, excuse me. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Let's get to our listener questions that have been submitted. And thank you to everybody who has done so. Taylor's just going to continue with a sock on his head, apparently, during this recording.
Hat.
It's a sock hat. Okay, all right. Callan K on our Discord has come in with this one. How much power do managers typically have over which players are brought into the club? Assuming it's a big range, what are some examples of managers who completely control the transfer targets against some examples of managers who want nothing to do with which specific players are brought in? It's an interesting one, Taylor, because obviously there are some archetypes of auteurs, if we're going to use film language there, like the Arsene Wengers and the Sir Alex Fergusons of the world, who perceive to have had most of the control over transfer business. But then we have this model coming in more and more these days of a sporting director or a director of football where a coach will work with them, and maybe the sporting director does a bit more of that work for recruitment than the coach does, who is concerning themselves more with, running around on the grass.
I think this is truly a fascinating question, because when I first read it, I was like, oh, it's kind of the standard, what's the difference between a coach and a manager? The coach is coaching the players that are brought in. The manager, though, has more say over who's brought in and for how much. I'm not sure that's really the case anymore, because I think the manager that had complete control over transfers is maybe a thing that never fully existed, except for like very specific circumstances like Alex Ferguson. Because even Arsene Wenger, I feel like, had seasons with Arsenal where he had to pretend like he was okay that they hadn't signed a single player. But it's totally cool. We're going to be great. Don't worry about it. And so I think, like, at present, the idea of a manager having like total control or even a strong amount of say over who is brought in, I think is increasingly limited, because for even like Pep Guardiola having a ton of influence in the decisions that are made, they still haven't like thinned out the squad the way he wanted. I think he still has players brought in that ultimately he's going to sign off on. But I think there are players that he will recommend that clubs might not go for. I think that happened with Jurgen Klopp a lot at Liverpool. There are a number of players that he wanted instead of, say, Mohamed Salah. But the club kind of was like, nah, that doesn't represent good value. Yes, exactly. Mario Götze, I think, ends up turning them down, which is why they get Sadio Mane in the first place, I believe. Like, there's lots of like sort of sliding doors moments there where I think a manager is going to have input, going to have say in terms of the type of player, the style of player, the key things they're looking for. But I think increasingly managers aren't really out there signing off, authorizing transfers. Yeah. Maybe at lower level is a place where that happens, but in the top flight, I think less and less common.
Yeah, the lower down the pyramid you go, the fewer resources you have at your disposal, right? You're not going to have the same size scouting department or analytics department. You might not even have those things at all, depending on what level you are. Maybe an assistant coach is doing some video scouting. You probably aren't crunching the numbers in any way, down at the bottom of, say, USL, like the very, USL League One, or the lower leagues over in Europe, or wherever you are, right? At that level, coaches are going to have a lot of input on transfers because they are a lot of the front office staff, because the front office staff doesn't really exist. At higher levels, though, and even I'm thinking about this as MLS and increasingly more USL Championship and above leagues, which are a lot of leagues, right, are above those. At those higher levels, coaches are not bringing players to the table, or at least very rarely are they bringing players to the table. They tend to be part of the review process of players that are brought to the table by the scouts and the analysts and the front office staff. And they're part of the decision-making process. Like, they have a seat at the table, they have a voice, and it matters, right? You want your coach to have some buy-in to what you're doing. That is important, certainly. But if they're presented with, 5 players, they might get to give some input on which ones they like and why, and which ones they don't like and why. And maybe their input will sway the group, maybe the group will sway the opposite direction. But they are now almost always at like the clubs that we know and talk about. They're part of the process rather than the whole process.
Yeah, and I think of the Man City All or Nothing documentary, which was mainly pretty dull, not my favourite football documentary series. But there was one episode in that series that did interest me, and it was seeing how they planned transfers. And it was Cheeky Boy Begiristain and Ferran Soriano, who was the CEO at the time. And I think a chief scout or someone like that, maybe an analyst as well, who had a laptop up and a PowerPoint presentation to bring up clips. And then Pep as well, because obviously you're not going to sign a player who he isn't on board with. And basically they sort of presented him with different players for what they needed. They went through players who were out of contract in the next year to 18 months. Here are some of the players we like if this player ends up leaving. Kind of like a list. They moved through a few of them, and they kind of came up with a hierarchy, like a pecking order of like, right, if this player moves, I think one of them was Kyle Walker, which was interesting. They put that in the documentary, but that was one of that was one of the things I found interesting. And so they had like a first choice and a second choice if they couldn't get that player. So yeah, there's a lot of collaboration, and I just don't think many clubs are forcing signings on managers, even with front offices being what they are today.
There are some examples of that though, Graham. I think of like Andrei Shevchenko to Chelsea, where Jose Mourinho probably didn't want him, but Roman Abramovich very much did.
Well, that was an owner-led signing, which does happen. I would say that's slightly different. But I accept the point. I mean, Enzo Maresca, looking at Chelsea right now, I'm pretty sure he's made quotes since he was hired a year ago where he pretty much doesn't want anything to do with transfers, which for a Chelsea manager is probably quite healthy for him. But he seems to very much just be a coach. I'll coach the players that are on the pitch. I think Carlo Ancelotti was similar. He didn't even do a lot of coaching on the pitch. So, yeah, you would never get anything good out of Carlo Ancelotti on transfers anyway as Real Madrid manager, because basically he knew as much as we all did. And then I also get the sense that, look, I'm not saying Arne Slot isn't sitting at the table for Liverpool, but towards the end of Klopp's time, he seemed to have a lot of sway. And actually, a lot of the people who are in the front office towards the end of Klopp's time were Klopp's mates. I think that was one of the issues, actually. And so I don't think Slot has the same sway and the same say that Klopp did towards the end of his time there. But yeah, he's still sitting on that committee.
Do we think Graham Xabi Alonso has a lot of say at Real Madrid? Because I think of like the Galactico era where it was like, hey, Carlos Queiroz, you've got a Luis Figo. Would you like a David Beckham? Plays the same place, but, they both make us a lot of money. Huh? Yeah? Want that?
I don't think he does have a lot to say, frankly. Xabi Alonso is like, we desperately need a midfield anchor. Okay, here is another forward. And we definitely need a central defender. There's another forward. And that's what makes it interesting.
It does.
I think it's why why Carlo Ancelotti is particularly brilliant is that he makes it very clear that he doesn't want that involvement, because I think it's immediately a thing that you can't kind of hang around his neck when you need to find a scapegoat. If he has publicly said, I'm coaching the players that this person brought in, it's not for me to decide who should be brought in. They're making the decisions. I do what I can with the squad I'm given. I think it's a good way to remove yourself from a potentially very sticky situation. I think Maresca has done that as well. But even Ancelotti then will have moments, I think, prior to his final season with Madrid, I think came out and said, this squad is not deep enough. We need more options. We need more depth. We need more capable players in certain areas. So even there, I think he will kind of flex the muscle when he needs to. I struggle to think of managers that are truly nope, head in the sand, do whatever you want, and I'll show up to preseason and see what we've got. I feel like that is another one that is less and less common. I think a few things we're talking about today are less and less common, I now realize.
Well, the other extreme of that spectrum, Taylor, and I've mentioned this a number of times since Poch was hired as USMNT head coach, but I always remember the reporting around him leaving Spurs, and basically how Daniel Levy found it frustrating that he and the front office staff would bring Poch targets and he wouldn't like any of them. So I'm saying, clubs won't sign a player if a manager isn't on board with that player. That becomes difficult if the manager isn't on board with any of the players that are being presented to him, and I think that was the situation Spurs ended up in. And not to cut Levy too much slack here, because he deserves criticism for a number of things, then the narrative was, Spurs aren't spending money. Poch leaves, Spurs start spending money. I think that's because Poch was vetoing a lot of the deals that they wanted to do. So, yeah, he was... He had a reputation for being very exacting about players that were signed for him. So naturally, his next two clubs were PSG and Chelsea.
Well,
not really
and
his identity.
That old Tottenham problem was just because they weren't presenting him with Max Arston, right, for Spurs.
Sure.
It's I need Big Max at left back and some other guys. They just didn't find the right players. Yeah.
I immediately picture Daniel Levy as the one in the relationship with the partner who's saying, I don't care. We can eat anywhere. I'm just hungry. Wherever you want to go. And then how about this place? No, I don't want that. How about this place? No, I don't want that. And suddenly I have sympathy for Daniel Levy that I did not before, because that can be a frustrating circumstance.
You've just given an unwitting light onto my spousal dynamics there, Taylor. Very well done there.
Just pro tip, the answer is always Thai food. Just really quick. That's the answer. Solved it.
Yeah. That's a good solution.
Dude,
very good. Joe's a solutions guy.
Answer.
Joe's not a problems guy. He's a solutions guy. We like that very much about him. Callan K, we like you for submitting that question via our Discord as well. Thank you very much indeed. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some USMNT hypotheticals to run through. Here we go. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Listener Questions episode. Shreyas Ramani has been in touch. Hello, Shreyas. Shreyas says, which of the following hypotheticals would be the biggest needle mover for the US for the World Cup next summer? All right, Joe, 6 options coming up here. You ready?
Bring it.
Here we go. Here's your smorgasbord of options. Number 1, a healthy Gio Reyna playing a full club season with no drama. No drama. Number 2.
Very unrealistic.
Graham, hypothetical.
Okay. I'm there
This
now.
could happen on this timeline. Number 2, Matt Turner returning to his revolution form with Lyon. Number 3, Christian Pulisic winning Serie A Player of the Year. Number 4, Luca Colioso, Nokai Banks, Lucho Acosta and Nathaniel Brown all declaring for the US. Number 5, either Pepe or Balogun winning the Golden Boot in their respective leagues, goodness me. And number 6, Malik Tillman making Leverkusen fans forget that Florian Wirtz left this summer. Joe, these are all good things. Which is the goodest?
Yeah, Graham's right. 6 is the goodest. I wasn't even all that tempted by any of the other ones. So there were some that definitely didn't tempt me. The Gio one I'm not as tempted by because the Malik Tillman one is just better, right? Like getting Malik Tillman to forget that one of the best attacking midfielders of his generation has left the club means that Malik Tillman is one of the best attacking midfielders of his generation and by extension on the planet, which the U.S. has never had. Like, we're talking about Malik Tillman becoming the greatest U.S. player ever, playing at the highest level, at least in terms of his peak, if not for like long stretch periods of time. But Malik Tillman, it would be a difference-making player for the U.S. Like, he would give them a genuine superstar at the World Cup. U.S. doesn't have that player. So I was not tempted by the Gio one because that feels like a dollar store version of the Malik Tillman one. I'm not tempted by Christian Pulisic winning the Serie A Player of the Year because that will go to Scott McTominay from now until the end of time. And also because we know he's a good player right now. Like, Christian Pulisic he's a very good Serie A player.
He's close to that level already.
Exactly.
So.
He's not representing that much of an increase, where the Tillman one would be a massive increase. I'm not tempted by the Pepe and Balogun one because the U.S. has tried, I don't know, 1 billion number 9s in the last 2 World Cup cycles, and none of them can score because they can't find the ball, right? And I think the Tillman thing solves the service problem. If you solve the service problem, you start to solve some of your goal-scoring problems a little bit higher up the field. The Matt Turner one did tempt me a little bit because a goalkeeper can change your fate in a tournament, right? Matt Turner was on a career heater, as it turns out, back with the Revs, and that is the kind of thing that can turn your World Cup run from a round of 16 to a quarterfinal. Like, having a goalkeeper come up in a big moment. Still, outfield players are more fun, and I think maybe this would be a bit more impactful to get Tillman. And what's the last one? The Koleosho, Banks, Lucho, and Nathaniel Brown. Tempting as a talent play. I really like it. Accumulating talent makes the team deeper. I think I want top end rather than filling out the kind of the middle or the bottom of the squad. Even though I really do like that option, the Malik Tillman one is, I think, the answer. And at the end of the day, even though there's some other fun ones, I don't know how close it is for me.
Does that mean you think Nathaniel Brown isn't top end?
Oh, I think Nathaniel Brown's a really good player. He's not going to start over Jedi Robinson. Like, that's the problem. He's not going to be a starting fullback for the U.S. If Nathaniel Brown was number 10 to add that to the pile, or like another central midfielder or a center back at his same level, I'd be more tempted by that. But even still, like, the Tillman one is just so good that I almost feel like you need to take it out of the equation to have the discussion about the rest of them.
Yeah, and it's almost the way that Shreya's words it, right? Makes Leverkusen fans forget that Florian Wirtz left this summer. If it was Tillman has a good season and maybe has half the output that Florian Wirtz has and, has a relative success, then that makes it tougher. But to make Leverkusen forget about Florian Wirtz, you're going to have to become one of the best players in the world in a season. So, yeah, I think it's number 6. I mean, had it been... If number 5 had been a player winning the Golden Boot in the Premier League or La Liga, then potentially, because then you could make the jump to, well, that player would be one of the best players in the world. Do you know who won the Golden Boot in the Eredivisie this season? I bet none of you can tell me who won the Golden Boot.
Jordan Henderson.
Not Jordan Henderson, no. Surprisingly. Sam Stein, for him, for FC Twente,
Sammy.
won the Golden Boot. For
Sammy Stein.
So, yeah. It'd be nice for Pepe to win the Golden Boot, but doesn't move the needle in the same way that Tillman being a proper Wirtz replacement would be.
Taylor?
I went a different direction, but I think I hear the argument about Tillman now more than I think I considered it when first considering this question. But I kind of ruled out numbers 3, which is the Pulisic one, number 5, the Pepe and Balogun one, because I'm not sure that, to Joe's point, I'm not sure how much club form is going to fully translate to USMNT form, and that is kind of where I was a little more hesitant on Malik Tillman. I think I was underrating the Florian Wirtz aspect of, like, if you eclipse him or if you truly make Leverkusen fans, I think I was taking that more euphemistically than literally. And I think if you take it literally, it's a good argument. But that was where I kind of ruled it out. Because if we're just saying, like, he's really good for Leverkusen this season, I'm still not sure that ends up moving the needle a ton.
I would be sorry to cut in. I would be ecstatic if we even said that about Malik Tillman this season. Like, he's been a good player for Leverkusen. That, I think, would be a huge win. And there are many other outcomes that don't have me as happy. Anyway, continue.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's where, like, I will probably end up saying Tillman now. I originally kind of ruled him out for the same reason of, like, it's club form. We just don't know how much that's going to translate. I ruled out Turner because even if he does recover that form, and Joe, I hear you about the Revs. Like, I still think, like, Tim Howard is the last goalkeeper for the U.S. that I feel like was truly on the day, he will shut down shop. No one is scoring. He is going to be the lights out difference maker. I think, like, Turner is maybe, like, at his full form is better than Matt Freese, but I think, to your point, I'm not sure, like, it's going to be that huge of a significant difference. Weirdly, like Gio Reyna playing a whole season and being drama-free was harder for me to rule out because that does put him back into the conversation. It's just then also, the Gio Reyna, like, well, is he not mad because he's playing in a league where there isn't pressure or whatever? I don't know. So at the end of the day, I think that could put him back into contention, but I don't know if one player kind of rediscovering some form is going to make the difference. So I did go with all of those fellows becoming fully USMNT internationals because Koleosho gives you options out wide. It's good to have Lucho Acosta as another kind of creative midfield option. But I hear you, Joe, that none of them like truly move the needle either, and none of them are guaranteed starters because I think Nathaniel Brown would be if we didn't have Jedi. So then you kind of have redundancies there, and maybe you're playing one in a more attacking position, but I'm not sure I trust either one of them to like fully create a ton as an out-and-out attacker. Noah Kai Banks is still very young. So if you made it like Noah Kai Banks was Bundesliga Defender of the Year, maybe now we're having a different conversation. If you made it Anders Dreyer instead of Lucho Acosta, maybe that's tempting. So I think like none of them, it was a really good question because none of them were truly like the obvious answer. So at the end of the day, I'm happy for it to be Malik Tillman wins the Ballon d'Or and also the World Cup in the same year.
Yeah, just my issue, that as well. Just my issue with number 4 is that none of those guys really are moving the needle for me. Like Brown doesn't play.
Lucho start, right?
Like Lucho today, maybe. Like there's a world in which maybe if Tillman doesn't have a good season and Gio Reyna is still doing Gio Reyna things, which he will be, I'm sure, that you get Lucho playing like a real role. But Luca Koleosho scored 2 goals in the championship last season. Like he's just not there. Like he's not ready to be an impact player. And the same is true for Banks, unfortunately, at the moment. So that's why I kept being drawn to the Tillman one. I think if you ditch that one from the equation, I get a lot more tempted by number 1, which is the Gio one, because the U.S. is just crying out for that player. And if I can pick any place for Gio Reyna to be having that full season and he's actually playing with no drama, then I'm going to pick like Real Madrid and he's going to be playing and starting for them, and I'm feeling great about number 1. But as things stand, the Tillman one's hard to pass up.
Yeah. The problem with the Gio one, Joe, is it doesn't specify which club and how well he's playing. So it could be at Sterling Albion and he's just fine.
Yeah. He's no Kai fathering him, but he's still a good player. You know?
Nobody is.
No.
Nobody is.
Can't be.
No disrespect on Sterling there, of course, Graham. You get the illustration I was trying to make there. Shreyas, thank you very much indeed.
We deserve it.
For your question. I could have used my team as well. Let's go to our next question from Alex Carnegie, who says, what's with all the players and managers who've been convicted of tax evasion in Spain? If you made a starting 11 plus a coach of people who've made this happen, would they win the Club World Cup? I think historically, if we didn't count for age, I think there's a decent argument for that. Graham, the likes of Messi, Di Maria, Gerard Piqué, obviously Carlo Ancelotti more recently, all got fines and suspended sentences. There's some reasons for this. The Spanish. If you want to get into the research,
Tax evasion is illegal. Is probably the number 1 reason.
Do you want me to get into why this is the situation, or my starting 11 for the Club World Cup?
Should we lay down the groundwork for why this keeps happening in Spain in particular? Basically, Spanish laws for non-violent first-time offenders with sentences under 2 years, you don't have to serve, and they give these kind of crimes, under 2-year sentences. But there's also reasons for why these players keep getting caught out as well.
Yeah. So. Look, I didn't know the answer to this before I started researching, so if anyone has other answers, please jump in. But this seems to be related to, in a weird way, David Beckham joining Real Madrid all the way back in 2003, when he was one of the first footballers to take advantage of, and I'm reading from a BBC article here, a new tax exemption scheme aimed at attracting foreign talent to Spain across all industries, not just soccer. But because Beckham was the first high-profile celebrity to use it, it actually became known as the Beckham Law in Spain. So he had a rule in the US and he had a law in Spain, and this was a bracket foreigners could sign up to get a 6-year-long tax ceiling of 24%, which is about half the tax rate in Spain for people who earn more than 6 figures. That was scrapped in 2010 for salaries of more than €600,000 a year. That then created a scenario where a lot of these players still wanted to keep the tax benefits or had become accustomed to those tax benefits, so they started to use offshore companies and accounts to get around the new tax laws. And so that's the context for what keeps happening. And a lot of the time it's image rights that they will offshore. And so in a lot of ways, it reminds me of what happened with Rangers here in Scotland, where they were using a tax scheme called EBTs to basically pay players more money off the books. But because that was Rangers doing that, the tax authorities went after Rangers and they gave them a bill they couldn't pay and they went bust. Whereas here, it's players and managers, and of course, I'm sure they're being advised by certain people here, but it's them, the individuals that are hiding things like, as I say, image rights, and so they're the targets. They're the ones that end up with a fine. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo's fine was 18.8 million euros, which I'm sure he was able to stomach, but that was the largest fine that I could find.
I think Graham's laid it out well. It sounds like one of the contributing factors to this, specifically Spain, is the financial collapse that basically threatened to bring down the entire Spanish economy. And I think in the wake of that, there's a feeling that there are a lot of people who are not paying their fair share, and that contributes significantly to the government not having the amount of money that it theoretically should to then be able to kind of solidify things. And so there's a concerted effort to go after high-profile figures to set a precedent and to reclaim a lot of money that wasn't going to the Spanish government, but also to, I think, show no one is above this. We will be kind of pursuing it aggressively and resolutely, and then making sure that no one actually has to go to prison. Because that is the other aspect that we've answered before. It's why everyone is always sentenced to 23 months, because if you're sentenced to more than 24 months, you then do have to go to prison. But in Spain, if it's under 2 years, then there is no mandatory prison. It gets converted to probation and fines, which is how they've sort of been able to pursue this and get people to reach settlements and agreements along the way. But it does seem to be, as Graham said, significantly related to a lot of quote-unquote misunderstandings about how things are supposed to operate. I did enjoy Lionel Messi trying to go with the old, I don't even know what I was signing, so that means I'm not legally responsible, right? Turns out that was not the legal defense he thought it might be.
Obviously not a legal defense, but I do kind of believe that these elite level players will be getting advice from people saying, yeah, sure, you'll save this amount of money and you just, get us to send this money to this account and everything will be fine. And they probably just go, yeah, fine, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And that is definitely what happens. I just think, it was drilled into me at a young age, I guess, or maybe I don't know when it was, but if your accountant misfiles something on your behalf, still your fault, still your responsibility. That's how it works. And so maybe that should just be a new rule whenever you become a professional footballer. You have to learn how to do your own laundry, and you have to learn about tax law so you don't then violate it.
I somehow missed the tax 101 course straight out of the womb. I do like that was part of your
Taylor's
upbringing,
getting
Taylor.
a bedtime story. The dog and the cat went to play, and by the way, if you do file and it's your accountant, it's your responsibility.
No, it was just my dad
quarterly.
yelling, "Don't tax evade" when I was a baby.
Gotcha. Honestly, that's 101 for you. That's where you start. You build from there. I'm glad, Taylor, you talked about the Spanish financial collapse, because one of the questions that I had that was still kind of unanswered, frankly, after doing my research, is why are so many of these high-profile cases happening with Spanish players playing in Spain and not other places? There's famous soccer players that play all over the world. And I think a couple of things do fit into the answer bucket for that. Is one of them is the reality for Spain as a nation with their financial collapse. I think that does help explain why maybe they've gone after some of these people harder, because let's not kid ourselves, right? This stuff surely is happening everywhere. It's happening in England. It has to be. Graham, you gave an example from Scotland. This stuff is not unique to Spain, but it does seem like it gets publicized a whole lot more in Spain, although less so recently. And maybe a reason for that is that there was a time, if we remember a time so far in the past, where La Liga was kind of like the joint top league in the world with the Premier League, where they had Messi and Ronaldo, and they had a bunch of the world's best players there. And we're in the global discussion a bit more. And I think those are the cases that have ended up getting publicized a little bit more, along with Spain's financial climate as a country around the time that a lot of those people are there. Because the Ancelotti thing isn't a recent thing. This is coming from 2014, according to my research, of some of the image rights disputes that have happened here. So a lot of these cases are a decade old that have taken some time to actually come and circulate into the public sphere. So still, I do expect these things are happening other places. Maybe they're just not brought up quite as much. Now I just want to hear Graham's 11. Graham's tax evasion FC 11.
So I can get a front line out of Neymar on the left, Messi on the right, Diego Costa and Cristiano Ronaldo in attack. It's a top-heavy team, but
has to be.
It's a PSG-style lineup here. I've got Di Maria as a CM, so it's a very attack-minded team. Xabi Alonso had a case against him, but he was actually acquitted, which is a shame for my midfield balance.
Same for Piqué, I believe.
Oh, Piqué! Damn, I've got Piqué in my back line. I've got
Mascherano
Sergio
can do it
Ramos
all.
and
He can do it all.
There we go. Yeah, Mascherano and Ramos at the back, and we've got Ancelotti and Mourinho.
Oh, we've got Ramos?
Yeah, we've got Ramos, yeah.
Okay, I didn't have Ramos. Ricardo
Huge
Carvalho.
signing.
Ricardo Carvalho was also convicted. Marcelo was investigated and reached a settlement. So you can throw him in there too, Graham.
Yeah.
There we go. We've got a
so
team that's definitely winning the Club World Cup.
I was going to say the opposite. The answer is this team has 0 chance to win the Club World Cup.
Who's in goal?
Yeah.
Casillas, right? We can use Casillas in goal, can't we?
Casillas got one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't have him. Great. I'm feeling
You were
good
going
about
to win
this
the
team
Club World Cup without a goalkeeper, Graham? No way. No way.
now.
Let's get the
Front
big
line
dog.
of Neymar, Messi, Ronaldo, and
That worked so well when PSG did it, basically, that exact same front line.
Excellent stuff. It's an interesting question because obviously it's not just the case that these players have bad accountants. There is some nuance. There is, as Taylor mentioned, the desire for the Spanish authorities to make high-profile cases out of these kind of things to keep folks in line as well.
Yeah, and I think there's even like Spanish tax law says if you live there for more than 183 days, then like they're entitled to your global revenue earnings or whatever it is. So like even there, you've got to calculate how many days you've actually resided in the country. That feels like a very specific number they landed on.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of why Ronaldo goes to Juve, right? Like he felt his image rights were like just being pillaged, and so Italy apparently have like more favourable image rights laws, I think. I'm sure that was a thing. I'm pulling this out of my subconscious, but I'm sure that was part of the reporting at the time.
Italy
Graham's
works
just been
with-
indicted for tax evasion in Italy.
Oh no, a knock at the door.
It's my understanding that Italy works with foreign workers more to provide more incentives for them to come over. So like Ronaldo would have been incentivized, Graham. Like, I even when we moved to Italy, there was similar incentive packages to come over. So yeah, there's different nuances in different European countries.
You got more of your image rights.
Yeah, they finally let me keep it.
We'll give you 100%, Ryan. We'll give you 100% of your image rights.
100% to nothing, still nothing, Joe. Alex, thank you very much indeed for your question there. We've got one from Chris Welter here, very much enjoying this one. An alien suddenly comes to Earth and asks each of you for 5 matches to attend to understand the beautiful game. Are you picking rivalries, soccer-obsessed cultures, or great atmospheres? Joe, if you'll allow me, I'd like to give you my 5. I think I've answered this quite well. So, my first game, I'm taking the Alien to a Classico. I think that's sort of the height of domestic soccer and arguably of quality, certainly for the Western soccer observer. My second game, a Super Classico, Boca Juniors and River Plate. I think similar reasons to the Classico, but also, the South American atmosphere. I think you'll get a different vibe from that. From a different sort of continental stance as well.
Your third game, a mega classical.
Just all classicos, yeah. My third game, a Women's World Cup final. So the alien can understand it is not just a male-dominated sport and the nuances of the women's game as well. My fourth game, an EFL League One game, possibly with AFC Wimbledon involved, just to understand how sort of the community aspect of soccer works, that it's not all 80,000 people in a stadium going crazy. And also, how to love terrible soccer as well. It's possible to do that in the sort of lower echelons of the soccer leagues. And I think mainly my rationale there is to find sort of a close-knit community club so the alien can understand that a soccer team's about more than the people who work for the club. It's about the people around the club as well. My fifth game is a game in the park where kids are playing. And I want to show the alien what the game means to everybody, what it means to people all over the world, and how it is the world sport, and how it is a very simple thing that helps us all communicate with one another. I think, Joe, that's a perfect 5.
It's a really good list. You were much more thoughtful with your list than I was. Good games. I need good games. I want to go to see fun games with Alien. That was sort of my top line perspective. Yours are great, much more well thought out and well reasoned than mine. At the end of the day, I will trade my list for yours, except for the lower league one. We're not doing that. But my 5.
Joe, just so you know, that is the correct opinion to have.
Yeah, for sure. I knew you'd back me up on that. I have 4 specific games and 1 general game. And my general game is also a Classico. It is, though, more specifically a Messi-Ronaldo game because, I don't know, there was just something so fun about that era. And that was part of my...
Are we time machining here as well, Joe, just to be clear?
Yeah, we're time machining, obviously.
Okay.
That is, like, part of my, soccer... I don't know, core, I guess, is like those games and sort of that rivalry, even though the discussion around it is incredibly tiresome and simple to solve. That is one of this. Yes, I am using a time machine. I suppose I didn't really.
You
think
don't
about
have to,
that.
Joe.
Seems plausible.
Because Ryan's presuming that the alien perceives time in a linear way the way we do.
Great
and if
call.
it perceives it as a flat circle.
It's a flat circle,
then
correct.
Right.
you can go to any point. As you would like
I'm
to.
just
Or
hoping the
you- or
alien
you could
doesn't.
just-
Go, Graham.
You just go to Saudi Arabia next season, and the two of them will be there. So
I thought you meant because they have time machines already.
No,
also
they're gonna
seems
buy. They're gonna buy Barcelona, buy Real Madrid, and then also get Messi over. Yeah, it seems possible. Anyway, Messi Ronaldo games on my list. The 2022 World Cup final, because that game ruled, and that's on my list. And that's like the biggest. That's the biggest stage, right? A World Cup final. I'm also tempted by that the U.S. beating Japan in the 2015 World Cup final because U.S. win, and I think that's something that we need to communicate on the soccer side. We'll not take them to any U.S. men's national team games, just the women's games. But I do have the 2022 World Cup final. I have the Liverpool-Barca 2019 semifinal Champions League comeback for Liverpool because that game was awesome. Yet again, I'm just showing them the real hits of the last decade. And then I have both of the Barca-Inter semifinals from this past year's Champions League because I honestly don't know that I can think of a better game of soccer than those games. So yes, Ryan's list is better than mine. My list is more fun for me, and that's really what this is all about.
Your list also has 6 games on it, Joe, if we're going to be technical.
Aliens count different. Boom, roasted. You fool.
I think Joe's
Did you not
list-
know
think
that?
of
The interstellar highway that requires Earth to be cleared is being built in Joe's universe because he went 6 instead of 5. Thanks.
As long as it
Floating
doesn't cut
stadiums
through my
everywhere.
floating stadium. Yeah, there it is. Nice.
Ryan, I went very similar to you, and not surprisingly for people who know me, also maybe massively overthought the alien aspect of this one because I couldn't get the movie Arrival
Death,
out of my
taxes,
head,
and that.
which that's it. The movie Arrival, which also does play into the idea of like how we perceive time and how an alien species might perceive time, but also in that movie there's a scene in which I think the aliens are communicating with like the Chinese simultaneously, and the Chinese are playing board games with them. And there's a whole thing about how that's a terrible idea because you're immediately teaching an extraterrestrial species that we prioritize conflict and like being against each other, and that humans are naturally inclined to be conflict oriented, which if you're meeting a new species is maybe not the message you want to send. So I've kind of rolled all that together to want it to be games in which they learn about our species, learn about our cultures and emotions, but also not come away thinking that we are by nature aggressive and conflict-oriented. I think we can thread that needle.
So no Pepe. Okay.
Yes, exactly. We remove Pepe. We lock Pepe in a prison so that we don't have to go down that road. Like, we just lock up him, lock up Zidane, lock up all the troublemakers, and then we should be fine. Now I'm a dictator. But I think I went with Ryan's idea that you want to have at least one women's game. I was thinking like right now, so I was going Euros final, but I think a women's World Cup final is a great way to do it. I had one of the kids' 3-a-side games, but one specifically in which all the parents are just like kind of there to have kids out running around instead of like, you're going to win the World Cup if you score a goal right now. We don't want that level of intensity from the parents. We want it being a positive and supportive environment. I do think I would throw in like PSG Man City for the modern game in all its oil-drenched glory, but you are still also getting then like very good, aesthetically pleasing soccer. Here are my 2 outliers. Graham, I'm hoping you will approve. I want a World Cup game in there because I think the World Cup showcases cultures coming together, people coming together, people rooting for national teams that are not their own because they met somebody at a bar and it was a really good time. And I think of 2 populations that I think would create a very fun and festive environment, and I need there to be a World Cup game between Scotland and Colombia. The USA-Colombia game that was here when Colombia like just crushed the U.S., that tailgate was 90% Colombian supporters. Every single one that I walked by was like, come have a drink, come have some food, come hang out. It was a very hospitable vibe. I feel like Scotland would reflect that. I think we'd get a good idea of like how the fan bases can be amicable, but then also still support their teams. And then I think for a pure like what the game means to a group of supporters standpoint, I think I'm going to go with Sunderland's first game back, home game back in the Premier League this season. Because I think about the Sunderland Till I Die documentary. I think I'm going to mention that at another time in this episode. But about how much that club means to the people of Sunderland. And I think for them to be back in the Premier League, that first game is going to be a crazy good atmosphere with a ton of passion and emotion behind it. And I think that would be difficult to not come away from loving the game. So those are my 5.
That's good. Graham, I imagine the Scotland,
Thanks,
Colombia.
Good sell there, buddy.
That was
all right.
You did enough to sell it yourself, too. That was an excellent.
Yeah, whatever nonsense you were saying. I was
Scotland,
on my phone.
Colombia.
Anyway,
Of all the World Cups, Scotland, Colombia. I find that an intriguing combo. It's but yeah,
Just because you
I
hate
like the
Scotland so
rationale.
much.
I mean, from what Graham tells us, Scotland are very into Colombian exports. Anyway, Graham, your top 5.
Yeah,
please.
accurate. So my first pick is an Old Firm derby. For all its warts, I think I want something that communicates how football is a part of so many people's identity. And I don't think there might be better rivalries out there, like the Super Classico, the Classico, higher standard of football there. But I don't think there's a rivalry out there in the world, frankly, that digs as deep into people's identity as the Old Firm does, where the team they support is the starting point for the rest of their identity as a person. That includes politics and religion, and obviously that's ridiculous to a certain extent. That's an extreme outlier, but I think once the alien understands that, it's easier to reverse engineer how other clubs affect people's personalities. I'm then sending these aliens to Naples. And I might be cheating here, they're not even going to a game. Or they're going to Naples when a game is on, but they're not going to the game. They're just going to spend a day in the city, eat in a local cafe, drink in a local bar, talk to some locals, and just get a sense for how Napoli, the team, permeates all areas of life in that city. And they'll get their picture taken with the Maradona tribute and the McFratemy tribute shrine that now exists in Naples. So that's my second pick.
Graham, just to jump in, you're sending the alien to Glasgow and then to downtown Naples. You want them to stay for the other 3 games, remember?
Well, next I'm sending them to Barcelona, so I'm making up for it.
There we go.
I'm sending them to a Barcelona match to experience how fun watching a soccer game can be, and how the imperfect is actually often more entertaining than the perfect. I'm not sending them to a PSG game because they're just too good. I'm sending them to Barcelona for all the chaos that they bring. I am then, similar to Taylor, sending them to a World Cup game, but not the final. The World Cup final 2022 would be an incredible game to send the aliens to, but I want them to go to the third place playoff. No, I'm sending them to a group game between. I mean, this is very similar to Taylor's pick, but I'm sending them to a game between a South American team and an African team the next time there is one at a World Cup. I just think a group stage game like that is a purer reflection of what the World Cup is and makes soccer special than the final, where there is a corporate element to the final. Can't really deny that. And then finally, I am sending the aliens to the Island Games, which incidentally is taking place this week in Orkney. And they have this football tournament where teams from tiny little islands all around the world play against each other. So places like the Faroe Islands and Greenland and places in the Indian Ocean, some of the most remote places in the world, yet they still all have a passion for football. They've travelled halfway across the world to play in the Island Games this week. And I love that about football. I have basically a newsletter based on this idea that it doesn't matter where you go in the world, there will be a team, there will be a league, there will be some sort of story. So I'm sending them to Orkney. I'm sending them to Scotland twice, actually. Congratulations.
I'm just dying at Graham using the alien to promote his newsletter into the channels of outer space.
Subscribe to the Soccer Dispatch.
Wow.
Oh, so mate, I've got a newsletter, actually, by the way, while we watch this game in the middle of nowhere.
On Earth, we will read the Soccer Dispatch. Did you know that?
Right. If you want to be up in space, I love it.
You guys are getting Earth taken over very quickly if you 3 are in charge.
Yeah, but Taylor's
really just taken over.
Just Graham and Ryan, or Graham and
Taylor's
Joe.
plan hinged on soccer parents being calm. So I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure that one's gonna fly either.
We'll see.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to lock up Gio Reyna's parents, too.
These were all very good options indeed. No one picked an MLS Next Pro game. No, never mind. Chris Welter, thank you very much indeed for your question there. A couple more after the break, including MLS playoff structures and what a proper football man is. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. Michael Parks has been in touch and says, what do you think of MLS doing all 3-legged ties throughout the playoffs? It would add more games and get rid of the weird playoff schedule they have now. Move the regular season to 30 games and force extra time and penalties every leg to discourage teams playing to penalties in every game. What do we think, Taylor? Do we think... I mean, the idea that this would get rid of a weird playoff schedule having 3-legged ties throughout is maybe a contradiction in terms in my view. But what do we think about the concept of having 3-legged ties throughout Major League Soccer playoffs?
I like the idea, even if I'm aware that there are massive drawbacks to it, and I look forward to Joe tearing this apart or agreeing, in which case I was right. Hooray. But I feel like there is like an American nuance to that of like having that third game. It feels more reflective of American sports where you tend to have more of a series. I think it also gets rid of like a few regular season games. I think it gives you less of a like kind of crapshoot feeling to the playoffs where if you have one bad night and then you go on the road and have a better night but still not great, you're out of the playoffs even if you had a really strong season. I feel like that third game theoretically could be a difference maker and bring more kind of balance and reward to the playoffs with more home games for the better teams. But you still have a lot of games and bad teams that maybe don't need a third game. Like maybe there's a few games that we can just agree, now we're going to keep that one home and away and then we're done. But I also think the idea of having games conclude with penalties is going to make playoffs more enjoyable if you're kind of removing the incentive to sit back and bunker and defend as much as you can. I think it could make for a more unique American playoff experience that still is reflective of like some soccer traditions. So I'm into it overall.
I'm leaving hard the extra time element of this. No. Well, hold on. That we're having extra time for every one of these games so teams don't just play for penalties. Oh, cool. So we can watch 30 more minutes of teams playing for penalties?
What if it's the thing where they take a player off every 5 minutes?
Sold. In on that. But yeah, extra time is not going to do it for me on that one. As far as this goes, I think, Taylor, in some ways I approach this from a similar place that you do. And I'm actually really curious to hear what Graham and Ryan think about this. I got to admit, I kind of like the 3-game model that we have for the first round. Like, I don't like the bloat, and we talk about this all the time. We talked about it with the Club World Cup. I don't really like the sake of just adding games and making the season longer for the sake of doing that. I know that Michael's cutting off what could theoretically be a month of the regular season, which does have some appeal, I think. But I kind of have come to enjoy the narrative element that comes from the three-legged series and the rivalries that it creates. There's been some recent back and forth on social media between Minnesota United and the LA Galaxy, where Minnesota were trying to take a dub on social media, and then the Galaxy, who smashed them in the playoffs last year, came in hard on top of them afterwards. And that stuff's fun. Like, you get narratives. And MLS needs that because it's a young league that doesn't really have a lot of rivalry. There's not a lot of hatred. And I think you get more of that with the 3-game series. I'm not totally married to it as a format. I think it could be ditched to actually fit your playoff schedule in a more important window that I'll talk about in just a second. But as a concept, I like the 3-game thing. And if MLS does change their calendar, I wouldn't be opposed to them keeping it in the way that it is. I'm not sure that adding more 3-game series is really adding a whole lot to the table. There's some value there. Like, if I like the format in part of the playoffs, then I'm not opposed to it in other parts. I think you have to have a standalone final just because it's cool that way. I don't know. You're not going to get the same buzz for a 3-legged series. I know the NBA does it, but it's harder, I think, in MLS. The real problem, though, with the playoffs right now is not that there aren't enough games. The real problem is that you can't fit it in without having a giant international break right in the middle of it. Like, that is the thing. If we're going to solve for a problem, we don't need to solve for the problem of having more 3-legged series. We need to solve for the problem of not having the November international break just destroy the momentum of the playoffs in Major League Soccer. It's a huge problem. Like, it is a massive, massive problem. And the only reason that we have the format that we do now in Major League Soccer of the 3 games in the first round is that MLS teams want more revenue, right? Which, understandable. That's matters, right, when you're running a sports team. They want to have an extra game in the playoffs. The better teams want to have a chance to host an extra game. Everybody wants to have a chance to host at least one playoff game. And I understand that. But to have that break hit before the conference semifinals is just, it's terrible. It's a truly terrible schedule, and it is detrimental for the league. I think if you could run your playoffs in the gap between the October break, because there's always one in October, and the November break, because there's always one in November, if you could fit your entire playoff schedule in there, that's the way to do it. Like, the break is not worth having the 3-game series. Maybe all this is going to be irrelevant if MLS changes their calendar. There's still buzz about that happening. It still seems like there's real wind blowing in that direction, to the point where I'd be more surprised if it doesn't happen in the next couple of years than if it does. But it would be worth ditching any and all best-of-3 series to just have your playoffs done before you have to take a giant break in the middle of them.
Yeah. I think when I first saw this question, Joe, my European mind couldn't comprehend it having the 3-legged ties all the way through. But I think I actually have come around to it, not just for the uniqueness and sort of the Americanness of having it as well. But one of the criticisms we level, or that can be leveled at Major League Soccer, is that there's less weighted importance in the regular season than the playoffs, right? So if this is a scenario where we shorten the regular season and make those games more meaningful because it's a shorter season, and then we have more weight in the playoffs, I think that has value. Yeah, personally, right?
Yeah, I think there's a big appeal to that. Like, to make the regular season matter more, I think is a huge problem for MLS. And it's a problem for other American sports leagues too, right? Where there's no penalty for going down. Like, your penalty is that you suck and maybe you lose some fans. There are consequences to being bad, but they are fainter in American sports than they are in basically every other sporting thing on earth. So having the regular season matter more, I think, would be amazing. And having the playoffs sort of reward, hey, if you're a good team and you get to host 2 home games in the playoffs, if your series goes to 3 games, or host then 2 more games in the next round, that has real appeal. So again, I see some upside here. There's just a practical limit on what MLS can do with their playoffs because of how the schedule is formatted right now. And that will always sort of be the case. Like, you just can't keep extending the season after season after season. You have to work within some sort of structure, and MLS has just not really found that so far.
Yeah. Graham, thoughts?
I like shortening the regular season. I would like some form of symmetry in the playoffs, because that's my biggest issue with the 3-legged. And look, maybe this is one of those things where I'm like, well, why do I care about that? But I guess I do. It's weird to me that if you are one of the wildcard teams, you come in and you play a single match tie, and then you go into a best of 3 tie, and then if you come out of that, you go back to a single match tie.
That's your penalty.
But then you go back to the single match tie. That lack of symmetry messes with me, and I can't think of like another soccer tournament that does that. Like, once you get into the knockouts, there's a consistency to pretty much every other tournament, unless there's one that I'm thinking of. I've come round to the idea of the best of 3 rounds, like similar to you, Ryan. The European mind can't comprehend like aggregate not mattering. I see that meme all the time, and I'm like, no, I actually can comprehend like a large parking lot outside a stadium. But like this is one of the fair examples where this does feel weird. Like, I've been conditioned to find this weird. But the fact of the matter is, last season, when we did get the best, the game 3, it was some of the best soccer of the entire season in MLS. I mean, that Inter Miami Atlanta game is a game 3. Yeah. There's a penalty shootout between Cincy and New York City FC as well. There's the Columbus Crew going out to the. Wait, I don't actually think that is a game 3. So scratch that. But the point stands. Some of the best, most memorable moments from last season were in game 3 matches. So if there's a way we could even it up and get some symmetry, that would make me very happy in my OCD. It would satisfy my OCD. But I've come round to the idea of the game 3 situation.
Graham, it would be okay. It would be okay. This would fit your symmetry requirement if it was 3 games all the way through up to MLS Cup, and then it was a single, right? Because that's Champions League style, where you go from 2 legs to 1. That would be okay in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, again, don't dig down into the logic of this, but as a sport, we have accepted that finals are okay to be like one-off games.
No, I mean, because honestly, I think you're onto something, right? MLS has had a couple of challenges in its like scheduling process forever, which is that, number 1, they never stick to a format, and number 2, that let's be honest, the format is a little complicated right now. It's not hard to understand, but it takes longer to explain to someone new. You do best of 3 in the first round, after the wild card round, by the way, and then it's single from there, versus if you just said it's best of 3 all the way to the final, and then it's just a 1-game final. Boom. I said it faster the second way than the first way. That matters. Like, I think that really does matter. And would it shock me if MLS does something similar to this question and what Michael's suggesting? No. Like, if they can figure out a way to do this, more playoff inventory is appealing. Whether the rest of the league that doesn't make the playoffs, all giant 40% of them, the minority, has a problem with it because that means they get 2 fewer home games. That's a consideration, right? That matters to these owners, and that's going to be a barrier versus maybe just pure expansion on top of the existing schedule. But I could see a world in which MLS does the best of 3 all the way to MLS Cup, and then that's a one-legged thing. It's just single game standalone. And I think there's some fun there. I really do. It's just a matter of making it make sense and not having a giant break in the middle.
And since it's MLS, if we're going to make it make sense, it has to be all of those things happen, but Miami get a bye to the final.
Correct. Yeah, well said.
And a 4th DP.
Well, they already got that. Make it a 5th.
Yeah. And a place in the World Cup, not the Club World Cup.
Right. Final offer.
Yeah.
Chicago won a word.
There we go. Michael Parks, thank you very much indeed for your question. One more for this episode from Joe Scallywag. What is a proper football man? And who are some examples? Is Mauricio Pochettino one of them? Graham, from my understanding of what a proper football man is, sort of a colloquial British term, I would have 3 criteria. Old school, working class kind of personality, possibly from the north of England. Someone who values grit and passion over nuanced tactics and macrobiotic diets and modern things. And third, may or may not eat worms.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, he was on my list as well, Daishi, of proper football men, along with Big Sam. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that a proper football man is someone clinging on to the past, maybe someone who revels in the nostalgia of a past decade, say the 90s, and maybe yearns for the days where men were men and people like Vinnie Jones could win the FA Cup. Not sure if that reminds you of anyone that we know.
I think I would disagree a little bit, Graham. I think you have to have a nostalgic or romanticized view of the 1990s.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know who that could possibly be.
And its bands. As
And
well.
weirdly, you also love Chili's? I don't know.
And advocate
weird
that you
niche.
take an extraterrestrial to lower league football.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Oh man, Ryan's a proper football man. Is it like universally used tongue in cheek, that expression? Like no one sincerely refers to themselves as that, do they?
I don't think.
Oh, I
think
do.
it's
Just when you guys aren't around.
I don't think someone would personally. Correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, but I don't think you'd identify as a proper football man. It's something you would use as a term for someone else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's largely used as an insult, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a bit of a proper football man in all of us. I'll speak for myself. There certainly is with me. I think it's conditioned into all Scottish football fans to have a little bit of that. You know, someone who likes crunching tackles and the kind of the mud. As a Scottish lower league fan, you have to like the mud. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, someone who refuses to move with the times, right? Someone who believes football was better before XG and draft excluders and all those things.
They use the phrase "laptop manager" in a sneering and dismissive way.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Wait, I've got three more things. If you say this, you might be a proper football man. If you say, he put in a shift today, you might be a proper football man. If you say, 2-0 up is the most dangerous lead in soccer, you are 100% a proper football man because that's ridiculous. Number 3, either the man or the ball, but never both. Though, if you say any of those things, you might be a proper football man. If you say all of them, you are.
What about get stuck in? Should we throw that in?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Get it in the mixer.
Yep.
Ref, he won the ball.
Oh, these are good, guys. Keep them coming.
I think anybody
we're done.
who
Cool. That works too.
vocally discusses the merits of hairdryer treatment. I think that's another one that feels very like the best way to motivate a player is to scream at them. That's how you get the best result. That feels pretty like old school hard work grift. We don't need tactics. We need men. That feels very proper
And
football
4-4-2.
man. Yeah, and 4-4-2.
of course.
I'm picturing.
Go on,
Let me
Graham.
go right. I was going to say I was picturing the Simpsons scene in Australia where Marge tries to order a coffee and the guy will only give her a beer. That's like 4-2-3-1 though. 4-4-2. 4-2-3-1. 4-4-2. Sorry, I cut you off for a crap joke.
No, it was well worth it because you made a Simpsons reference, and that's always what we want around here, Graham. So the archetypes: Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, those kind of people. I think here's
Roy Keane.
Roy Keane.
I was going to ask that.
So
Okay.
Pochettino, I don't think fits in, and I'll give you one criteria for a manager or a person who I don't think fits in. If you use hair product, I don't think you can be a proper football man.
Graham Souness agrees.
That's good, Ryan.
Is that the delineation?
Yeah, it might be.
You can use pomade. You can definitely use pomade to be a proper football man. You got to get the flat top spikes to stand straight up somehow. But it
Rigid,
can't be
just like the defensive block
Joey
of the
Barton.
4-4-2.
I'm pretty sure I can picture Joey Barton with some hair product.
You have to,
as a proper football man to a criminal extent.
Okay,
actually.
at the very least, you have to be given an exemption to be allowed to use hair product. Because I think Ryan, you're onto something. Like you need to file some sort of claim to.
Joe, I got you. Maybe the exemption could be if your hairstylist who puts that product in also runs like a bait and tackle shop and maybe has a combination sort of facility where you get your haircut and
Like a 2-for-1.
also bait supplies and maybe also a sandwich.
Right.
Sounds great. Where is this place?
You're the one who had a standing appointment there. You tell me. But yeah, I think we've landed on a lot of it. I think there's some interesting things. Another couple of examples first, though. I mentioned that I would mention Sunderland Till I Die Again. There's an episode in there where you go with a scout to a lower league game, and he is watching a player who is clearly very good on the technical side. But the scout completely dismisses the player because, does anyone remember?
Never saw it.
He is wearing gloves, and it is cold outside.
Well,
and
that's
that's enough
weak.
for him to say, not what we need. That feels very proper football man.
Taylor,
Yep.
do you remember why Sir Alex Ferguson didn't sign Jordan Henderson?
Because he wore a snood, I'm guessing.
because he runs from his knees, whatever that means. That feels very proper football man coded.
As in he's scared of his knees, or?
I gotta get that one. I have a thing that's not this.
That does feel like that we always reference it. The scene in Moneyball where they're like, he's got like a weird walk and like he's got an ugly girlfriend. I don't know about that one. That feels all like very like proper football man, proper baseball scout sort of mentality.
Which is weird because on the Poch front, Poch has some of that to him, right? Because I don't think he's a proper football man. I think he is actually like he wants to play a pretty modern style. He wants to use the ball. If you want to use the ball, you can't really be a proper football man. I'm sorry. He doesn't play 4-4-2. Like he doesn't drop any of those British isms. And maybe there's like an Argentine version of this. I'm sure there is in every culture. But I don't get that vibe from Pochettino, except he does those random things like the eye dominance thing of like, oh, well, can't play him on this side because of this. Like all these random things that the scouts at the Moneyball table
he believes
would
in
be talking
universal
about before they
energy.
all get fired. It's just ridiculous.
He's a believer in universal energy. There is no chance that Mauricio Pochettino is a proper football man.
I don't know.
I think there is. I think there is an element of like, if you grew up watching South American football and maybe CONCACAF soccer, you have to kind of like some of what Graham's talking about. Muddy pitches for Scotland. For us, it's waterlogged pitches with pure humidity. And that does require a little bit of the kind of getting stuck in the fight. I think it's when you have more than like 3 of the 5 boxes ticked is when you move into proper football man territory. And I can't see Pochettino really being like, it's not, what's the saying? Like, it's not X's and O's, it's like Jimmy's and Joe's or whatever it is. I think, especially if he's saying that, then we should be concerned.
Yeah, he does have some, like, he talked about a lot early on, like, I need to touch the players, I need to feel the players, I need to be around the players.
Universal energy.
And he does kind of have that vibe of...
Is that proper football man?
But here's the thing. He has a vibe of, like, I'm not really watching the tape so much. I'm just going to wait till they all get to camp, and then I'm going to watch them, and then I'll decide what the lineup should look like. That is a little proper football man. Like, I'm going to trust my judgment. Like, I know I just need to be there in person to see it all play out, and then it's all going to work out. I think Pochettino has some proper football man tendencies, but it might just be, as Graham said, that we all do somewhere.
I don't think you can be a proper football man and not be British. Like I think that is a requirement.
I disagree.
Because to me, part of it is having a like they're soft foreigners. There's like a tiny bit of xenophobia to it as well in my mind. Because I think about like when Manchester City first have the money they do and they start to sign players, and I will forever remember when they signed Yaya Toure, Champions League winning Yaya Toure. There was a response of like, why are they signing these like weaker continental players who can't do anything? They should be focused on British players who've already played in the league. And there's just like, there is that sort of like foreign players are never going to be able to handle our league. We invented the game after all. I think that goes into the proper football man for me. And maybe I'm taking it too far into a serious direction.
No, it does. That's definitely part of it. And the Brits do it well, and we can understand it well. I have this sense that I've watched like a weird amount of Argentine soccer over the years. There's a lot of 4-4-2. There's a lot of 40-year-old striker pairings, like where both of the dudes are 40 years old. There's like very little play through the midfield. There's a lot of you heard it. There's a lot of like proper football man tactical energy coming out of Argentina, and with how physical some of the game is there. There has to be like the Spanish language version of this. I think it's in every culture. I just think we're worse at recognizing it because we don't speak Spanish.
There you go. Well, maybe there is the proper football man and there's the hombre de fútbol adecuado.
There it is. 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in sports.
Do we think like all the people at the bleeding edge of innovation, of football innovation in Argentina are like, can't believe the US hired Pochettino, that proper football man, like, and just because we don't understand the cultural indications, we're not attuned to it.
Maybe.
I hope so.
Maybe so.
I have, at the risk of making us go even longer on this one, like, do we feel like there are fewer proper football men in the Premier League than there have ever been? I feel like we used to always have like 4 at least, and I struggle to think of like
they were
one.
all Scottish.
Well, they're a dying breed, right?
And they're dying because they're wrong. So that's why they're dying.
We didn't say
they're
that.
dying because everybody's figured out, all right, fine, we got to see what Liverpool and Brentford and Brighton are doing and actually open up the laptop. Like, they're never going to be
We'll
quite
learn
extinct.
Excel. Fine.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. Like, they finally caved and it's like, all right, I'll type in a formula. Average. Let's start there. Like, they are totally a dying breed.
equals
Yeah,
someone.
totally. Where I find we are going long on this, but where I find it like difficult to differentiate is we would think of a proper football man as someone who thinks like hard work, hard running, work ethic is the way to results. Which, like, if you listen to Pep Guardiola or Poch since he's come into the US, like if you listen to what they say, these people who are seen as like the epitome of football innovation, they all make the same point there. So that's what I mean by there's a bit of a proper football man in all of us, even the people at the bleeding edge.
There we are. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
What a way.
I think you have to have. I truly think you have to have that because I struggle to think of a team that's like you. I mean, aside from a few Barcelona variations of like never have any physicality in the game at all. That's always going to be a part of it. That's always going to be a component. I think it's just like you want that balance to be closer to like technical precision and tactical awareness, but you still want like 20 to 30% physicality. I think proper football man would prefer it be 80% physicality, 20% knowing where you fit into a 4-4-2.
Joe Scallywag, thank you very much indeed for your proper football man question. We appreciate you and everybody who has submitted a question. If you'd like to do so, you can go to totalsoccershow.com/questions, or you can access our Discord server, patreon.com/totalsoccershow. Please and a thank you. If you'd like to visit our bonus feed, we have a lovely question about the moment we each fell in love with our clubs and knew that we were hooked on the beautiful game for life. If you want to hear that, bonus feed for you. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your contributions to this episode.
Thank you very much, and I think we've stumbled upon a Jeff Foxworthy-esque comedic formula of if you've ever seen a picture of Paul Pogba and gotten mad about his hair, you might be a proper football man.
Oh boy, we seem to be straying into a different kind of person, arguably, with that assessment. Joe Lowry, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Brian.
Graham Ruthven, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. It's Danny DeVito in Matilda who gets his hair glued to the hat. That's what I was thinking of. Sorry, throwback to the start of the episode.
Oh, what a relief. We've solved it.
Wow. That's what we're all about, the book ending. It's very professional on these podcasts that we do that. Thank you very much for that, Graham Ruthven. And listener, thank you for joining us on the feed. You have yourself a lovely weekend. We'll be back on the feed very shortly, but for now, bye!